there was a video I saw by Real Men Real Style, which is a channel that I find really interesting for many different reasons. But he had a video titled "Why Most Men Don't Dare to Dress Well." So I thought it would be very interesting to react to that and see what his points are and why he thinks most of us men do not take our style too seriously.
So my wife and I were invited to a party the other day. It was a bit of a fancier one. It was in a nice venue. They had sent out invitations, but they weren't specific about the dress code. Now I knew the host. I could read between the lines. I knew that I was going to wear a casual suit, and my wife was looking great in a beautiful dark colored dress. Now when we arrived, what we found is there was a wide range in the attire. The women, for the most part, were dressed eloquently. In fact, I can't think of a woman that wasn't wearing a nice dress. The men, on the other hand, yeah, this is where the range was. Now, nobody was wearing anything embarrassingly bad, but it was clear that a lot of the guys really didn't put a whole lot of thought into their outfit. They were underdressed. And gents, I'm not here to judge other people, and I encourage you to look past clothing, really try to get
Guys, I'm not here to judge other people, but they were really badly dressed.
to know people. Don't judge a book by its cover. However, the reality is most people do judge a book by its cover. Most people make a decision about you based off what they see. And the big problem I see for a lot of men out there is that they don't have the courage to be the best dressed man in the room. And I say that not in a way to make it sound like a competition.
Is it a courage thing, though? I'm not sure. Obviously, we're going to watch this video, but I don't know if I agree with that. Sometimes it's just money. Like, I think with a lot of men, let's think about like traditional, what is seen as like good on a man. I think it's really hard to dress well as a man in that sartorial way, because getting a suit that fits well is actually very expensive and really hard and difficult to do. Like someone like me, for example, I'll give you an instance of what I mean. I have really big calf muscles. So if I was to get an off-the-rack suit, it probably wouldn't fit well. Now, if I get it made to measure suits, what they do is they take your measurements, but they use like a very standardized block as the basis of the shape of the suit. So they're just accounting for your measurements. So they might elongate a sleeve because maybe my sleeves are longer or whatever, but the trousers will still be straight. And so my calf muscles would just like be tight and it wouldn't fit well. So when you get a bespoke suit, which is the level up from that, they would actually make sure that they carve out a space for my calf muscles specifically to make sure that it accommodates for the shape and it doesn't interfere with the shape of the trousers and the silhouette. So in that sartorial way, someone like me, for example, to get a suit that fits perfectly in that sense is really hard and really expensive. So the whole idea of men aren't just confident, actually, it's very hard to afford these things. Whereas I think with a lot of women's wear, let's say like a dress, some dresses might be body hugging. So it really has nothing to do with the trousers perfectly sculpting around your calf muscles and your wide shoulders and all that sort of stuff. So I don't know about the whole people aren't confident enough. Also, in society generally, it's kind of frowned upon for men to be into fashion, which is why even today, it's 2025, I meet people and they assume that I'm gay because I work in fashion. Not that there's any issues with being gay, but it's more, why is that an assumption just based on an interest? What does an interest have to do with sexuality? Like those two things shouldn't correlate. So I think a lot of men are shamed for even caring about fashion. So there are many different aspects I think to consider.
But instead to highlight the fact that many men out there, even when given the time, even when their partner dresses well, they choose for a variety of reasons to dress down or to dress in a way they always have. Now, there's a great HBO show called The Newsroom, and you've probably seen the clip where Jeff Daniels states,
"It's not the greatest country in the world, Professor. That's my answer."
Now, he says this statement to a lot of proud Americans. It shocks them, and then he goes in to make a point. And his point is, the first step in solving a problem is to recognize there is one. Gents, the problem I want to raise awareness of in today's video is that the majority of men out there do not realize the importance of their image. We go out there and we spend tons of money on our education. We spend a lot of time gaining experience. We approach a problem with enthusiasm. But when it comes to our nonverbal communication, our ability to send a message with our image, our style, the way we dress and the way we present ourselves, a lot of guys out there, well, let's just face it, they are dropping the ball. You've got that great friend, good guy, spends all the time in the gym, has a great body, but wears clothing that it just makes him look bad. All this begs the question, why do so many men not understand style? What's holding guys back from being the best?
Yeah, Reggie, I'm with you. I think most guys know that self-image is important. I don't think there's anyone that's an adult that is just not aware at all that the way you people will judge you based on the way you present yourself. I'm sure most people know that.
Dressed man in the room. Actually, to be more specific, their best dressed selves. Because here's what I'm shooting for. I want you to look great. Whether you wear a suit, whether you're wearing casual clothing, I want you to be able to put your best foot forward. And in today's video, we're going to identify the economic, the psychological, the cultural, and the practical reasons why most men choose to not dress well and how you can overcome those obstacles. So the first reason why most men aren't dressing well is that the majority of men around them do not dress well. The reality is that we are social creatures. You may think you independently think about things. No, you are taking cues all the time from the people around you. If everyone in your friend circles wears a baseball cap, a t-shirt, and jeans with running shoes, guess what? You are going to fall in line and experiment after
But you can dress well wearing that, though. You can look good wearing a baseball cap, a t-shirt, jeans, and some running shoes. I don't think every situation on earth calls for sharp tailoring. I don't think every single situation in life calls for wearing a three-piece suit. Sometimes actually you're doing something really active and a suit actually isn't suitable for that situation. And even within denim and a t-shirt and baseball caps and running shoes, there are levels. There are people that... Have you seen people in Japan wear like raw denim and baseball caps and they look amazing, and loafers or running shoes? Have you seen them? I don't know, man.
Experiment has shown that human beings are incredibly susceptible to the actions, behaviors, and dress code of those around them. And yeah, I said dress code, even though it's an unofficial dress code. Very rarely nowadays, even that party I went to the other day, there wasn't a dress code. They didn't lay it out. I always think it's easier when they do. But the thing is, we still look around. We take cues. We look. If you go into a casual environment, you start to feel out of place if you are dressing at a higher level. If you walk into a party and everyone is dressed to the nines and you're not, you're the odd man out, you are going to feel a bit odd. You are going to feel underdressed. And of course, no surprise here that in the West, particularly the United States and Canada, we have seen dress codes just become more and more casual as we've gone towards athleisure wear, as we've worked more and more at home, as the casual Fridays of the 80s turned into the casual week of the 90s, as turned into pajama month by the year 2010. In fact, nowadays, when I'm out wearing a sports jacket, people think I'm wearing a friggin' suit, which there is a big difference between a suit is a jacket and trousers made from the same material, a sports jacket or an odd jacket, as the name implies, a non-matching material with the trousers. In any case, as society as a whole became more casual, started dressing down and caring less for style, even if you tried to maintain your own standards, it became increasingly difficult as those around you continued to dress down. In all the environments we find ourselves going to, the overall dress continues to go down and in general is geared towards comfort. And I did bring up that italics in comfort because I think that brings up another reason why a lot of people aren't dressing well is a lot of guys assume that dressing well is somehow uncomfortable. Now, in defense of the 10-year-old that is forced to wear a piece of clothing that he's not used to, and it's not nearly as comfortable as a t-shirt. Yes, he's got to wear, that tie. He doesn't know how to tie. It's way too tight. His mom bought him this shirt.
I always see people on YouTube saying that men these days don't know how to tie a tie. Is that really true? When I was in school, we all had school uniforms. So of course we know how to tie a tie. I just don't agree with a lot of the points. And this idea, he's coming from a perspective that the only way to dress well is through his lens. So the only way you dress well is if you wear sports jackets or suits or tuxes. And that's kind of like your style and that's it. And otherwise, I'm overdressed for the situations. I do think that sometimes if it's a time and place. So if you're wearing a baseball cap and jeans at a black tie event, then obviously you aren't correctly dressed and you're not appropriately dressed. However, saying someone is underdressed or, saying someone doesn't make an effort with their style because you're wearing a sports jacket and they're not is a bit weird. I don't know if I agree with that.
When it was, 2 years ago, he's outgrown it. Yeah, this is incredibly uncomfortable. And some of you guys that occasionally have to wear a suit, maybe at a wedding, you're like, man, I do not like this stuff. It doesn't fit well. It doesn't feel, just wearing this necktie for a few hours, all of a sudden you've got redness around here. Yeah, in this case, you're wearing a costume. This isn't clothing actually made to fit you. So that's why it's uncomfortable, because most likely it's using actually poor quality materials and the fit is not good. However, whenever you buy quality men's clothing that's made to fit your build, actually you put it on, there's no hot spots, it's actually made from a luxurious material, maybe it's going to be wool, a really high-end cotton that is very comfortable, and you get used to wearing it. And that's a really important point because a lot of times if you're not used to wearing a particular type or style of clothing, you're not really uncomfortable in it, you're just unfamiliar with it. And over time, the more times that you wear it, you become more and more familiar. It's like going into a gym for the first time. You don't know where any of the equipment's at. You don't know how to use it. By the 10th to 20th time you've been in the gym, you start to feel like a regular. You know where things are at. You know how the workouts are supposed to go. The same thing with dressing well. You understand what works with what, how things should be layered, how the fit.
I just don't understand such a rigid understanding of what dressing well is. So if you don't dress like this, you don't dress well. What world are we living in? What people need to understand is like, certain things are circumstantial. So if I work in finance, obviously I'm going to dress that way because if I work in finance, people are judging me based on how I dress. And if I don't look that way, then it could start to affect jobs that I get, how much money I make, how fast I progress. If people take me seriously, you can, switch that for any other industry. I work in the fashion industry, right? If you dress like this in fashion, people are going to look at you and think you're really stuffy, you're not really creative, and then all the issues that I talked about with the finance bros, you're going to get judged, but the other way for dressing like that. So I think it really just depends on what realm that you exist in. So I think there's so many different ways to dress well and look good that doesn't involve a more sartorial understanding of what dressing well is. And I do think that I appreciate all of it. I think that he's well dressed. I really like the way, that kind of sports jacket, sports coat, loafers, suits. I like it. It's really cool. I think it's really nice. And there's so much nuance in that kind of style. I mean, if you go on Savile Row and you look at all the different shapes and different signatures that all these tailors have, it's really interesting. And this sartorial culture, it expands into many different other things, right? I feel like it expands into cigar culture and all these kind of other things that I find really interesting. I just think that saying that this is the only way or thinking that this is the only way to dress well, I just don't agree with that at all.
Should be. And all of a sudden you become very comfortable. All of a sudden you start liking the fact that people call you sir, that people actually notice you when you walk into a place. They assume you're the man in charge because you look like the man in charge. And that takes me to the next reason I think a lot of guys don't dress well is they are oblivious to the fact of how important it is for us to dress in a manner so that people make a positive judgment about you whenever they see you. Now, I know some of you guys out there are saying, I don't care what people think about me. They should be able to see into my heart and know that, I've got that fancy degree, I've got all that experience. No, people don't have time for that. You don't have time for that. There's a whole field of science about this, heuristics, basically how we use mental shortcuts as human beings to be able to navigate the infinite. There is just too much information. So we break things down and we use these, these prejudices, we use these shortcuts to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go this, I'm going to do that. Historically, this has worked for me. It works about 90% of the time because yes, there are anomalies out there, but usually when you meet a person and they're dressed in a certain way, your idea of success, whatever your field may be, I know that.
Okay, so he exposed himself. So he's basically just almost admitted that to him, dressing this way exudes a certain level of success. Once again, I think it's all situational because the rich people I know, none of them dress like that. That's because I work in the fashion industry though. So all the millionaires and billionaires that I've personally met, they wear Yohji Yamamoto and Issey Miyake. And some of the women that I know that are really rich dress like artists. Like literally, they wear the Issey Miyake mainline pieces where you have to where you can move all the different pieces and turn the hood into a waist and into a belt and all that kind of stuff. So this idea that success only looks like that, I find that really strange. I don't know. I find it odd.
This person normally dresses in this manner.
I just think it's a very rigid way to look at society and to look at clothing.
So I'm going to be able to use that quick shortcut, save my energy, and to be able to move on. When you understand that that's the way most people work day to day, all of a sudden you realize, well, this is a hack, simply dressing in a manner that...
Yes, Reggie, I'm with you that he's right in saying that we use mental shortcuts, but he's ignoring different lifestyles. Exactly. It's almost coming from a perspective of if you do not exist in my lifestyle or in my realm of things, then you're not well dressed, you don't care about fashion, and you aren't signaling a certain level of success.
I project the image I want to. And seriously, there are tons of professions that do this. Whenever you're getting on an airplane, you see those guys board early, The pilot and the stewardesses, guess what? They are dressed in a certain manner. If you had a naked guy run into, a building and say, everyone get out, we're going to call the cops. You're going to think he's crazy. You're going to call the uniformed professionals. But if a uniformed professional who looked like a fireman came in and said, everybody get out of here, what are you going to do? Everyone's getting up and they're getting out of here, based solely on what we see. And so when a guy understands, hey, you dress in a certain manner.
So he made a good point, but he contradicted himself, and I don't think he realized that. So he made the point just now that if a naked person runs into a building and tells everyone to get out, people just think that they are insane, and people probably call the cops. But if someone wearing a fireman jacket, runs into a building and says, everyone get out, because of what people associate with the fireman jacket, then of course that means that everyone would run out because that's what we associate with that. So why I don't think he realized he contradicted himself is because we can use that for anything. So what he's saying is that in his sartorial way of doing things and the way he sees things in his realm, when you are dressed a certain way, like when you wear a suit and when you dress in that certain way, people perceive certain things about you and it will affect the way they treat you. But just the same way that can be used for firemen is the same way it can be used for people wearing suits. And it's the same way it could be used for people that dress in a very artful way. It's the same way it could be used for many other uniforms. So without even meaning to, he's almost made the point that there are so many different aspects of dressing that can determine how people perceive you and also determine how they treat you. So in a way, he's almost agreeing with me indirectly that, there's so many different realms of style and different subsects of style and fashion, and all of them have their codes and their ways of seeing things. But he doesn't realize that he's actually saying that.
In certain fields, you're going to be able to close more sales. You are going to be able to send a signal of authority. People are just going to question you less.
So let me tell him as a fact, if you work in my side of fashion, you're not going to close more sales by wearing a suit. That's why he's looking at things in a very rigid way. In my realm, you're going to close more money probably looking like an artsy fashion person than you are wearing a three-piece suit, to be very honest with you, in my realm of things. Like, I'm a consultant for brands and I consult on like creative strategy and on marketing. So it's kind of on brand for me when I talk to clients to not wear a suit because companies will not perceive you as this creative marketing whiz if you go there wearing a suit, because their associations, they don't deem anything creative about that. Even though I do think that there are levels of creativity within tailoring and sartorial clothing, right? So I don't think he realizes that he's doing that. He's almost like contradicting himself.
You're going to have to deal with just less a-holes. All of a sudden, the rewards and the incentives for a person to start dressing better, they're there. And that's what I love. When a man realizes, it's not about the style. It's not about being a fashionista. It's about using your clothing as a tool to get what you want out of life. Now, some of you guys that work from home are like, okay, Antonio, that doesn't apply to me at all. I don't go anywhere. Then in that case, I still would recommend that you dress well, that you shower, that you maybe put on a favorite fragrance, that you dress in a way. Who are you dressing for? You're dressing for yourself. And there's an entire field called enclothed cognition. Classic study here, they had a group of students, they were like 500 of them. 250 were told they were wearing doctor jackets. The other 250 were told they were wearing painter smocks. They took a test. Guess what they found? Those that thought they were wearing doctor jackets were more attentive and therefore their mindset was in the right place. They scored statistically higher on their exams. Now, don't confuse my point. I'm not saying to start wearing a doctor's jacket whenever you're taking a test. What I am saying is understand that the clothing you wear actually affects the way you perform. Think about it with athletes. If you were to have
This is a good point. It's not about style. It's about using clothing to get to what you want. Yep, showed his hand. This is also a J3. Antonio's content over the years usually gravitates to a more conservative audience. He is, after all, former Marine, so keep that context in mind. Yeah, of course, but I do think that more context needs to be provided, because the same way that I've said that there's actually a lot of validity to his way of dressing, and in certain realms it's very beneficial to dress that way, like if you work in finance, in certain industries. So I can understand his point of view, but he can't understand anyone else's point of view. So I think that's where his understanding of fashion as a whole is limited, because he doesn't understand that there are so many different realms And not every single industry, people have to look like that to close deals. If anything, there are certain industries where if you actually look like that, it's off brand for you and actually it will work against you. Kind of what the casual was saying when the casual said, dude, in your realm, wearing a suit will get you laughed at. So it's a very closed-minded understanding of what fashion is. So that's my issue with it. So I obviously understand where he's coming from. I just think it's limited.
Some of those top soccer players go out wearing a ballerina's tutu. They're not going to probably perform as well because they're wearing the wrong clothing. They're going to feel out of place. The same with you. And they've even shown this actually on video. If you haven't showered and you think you smell, your confidence level is lower. And they've shown this. Yeah, they have a whole study on this. And again, I've done this research. I see it again and again. And I want to encourage you, whenever you've got that important meeting, actually get ready for it. Dress well for it, even if the camera's not going to be turned on. And you feel good. And
once again, what industry is this meeting in? Not everyone wears it. I keep saying, I'm not going to one of these meetings with consultants wearing a suit. First of all, no one there is going to be wearing a suit. So if you wear a suit, it looks weird. Like, I don't work in finance. Secondly, no one's going to think of you as a creative whiz if you go around wearing Savile Row suits. It's actually on brand to wear different things. And I'm just talking about one industry. There's so many different industries where the clothing expectation and the culture around what people wear is different. In tech, people in tech wear, there's Patagonia vests and all those kind of things. So what is well-dressed is relative depending where you are. It's really relative.
And you are going to be able to perform at a higher level. Now, if you're nodding your head throughout this, you're like, Antonio, this all sounds great, but I'm still not going to improve my style. I'm not going to look good because I don't want to stand out from the crowd. I get it. And the desire for human beings to fit in, this is primal. I mean, we go back, thousands, tens of thousands of years. If you were thrown out of the tribe, this was pretty much a death sentence. But here's the thing, as human beings, we often internalize and we overthink and we think what matters to others, actually, it really doesn't matter to them. If you want to be that guy that has the reputation is, hey, being the bow tie guy, being the guy that maybe dresses a little bit better, this actually can be to your advantage. Years ago, when I owned a custom clothing, I had a client, he worked over at Microsoft, and he was pretty much the only guy that ever dressed well. And guess what? When Bill Gates was in town, was having a charity event, they were like, who actually has a black tie outfit? Because the event was like in 3 to 4 hours. They wanted to send somebody from his division. Guess what? He was the only person.
Once again, it's situational. Like, if I go to a conference with my friends that work in finance, I'm not going to wear my Rick Owens and my Marni trousers. If I go to a black tie event, I'm not going to wear that. I'm going to dress appropriately for the event. So those points, I don't see what the point is.
Not the most qualified person to sit with Bill and Melinda Gates when they were back together. But no, he was just simply the person that was prepared. So there is an advantage to actually standing out and having that courage. Again, I'm not going to say stand out in a negative way, but
this is so true, by the way. Men who are ultra muscular look awful in an off-the-rack suit. They're better off not wearing one than in a super tight one that's straining at the arms and legs. Awful. Yeah, do you know someone who I think has brought menswear tailoring back by 1,000 years? I'll show you guys. This trigger warning in advance, by the way. Trigger warning. So Andrew Tate, because a lot of young men follow him, I think he wears some of the worst looking tailoring I've ever seen in my life. Like this kind of like muscle fit. I don't even know what it is. I don't even know where you get stuff like this from. Like it looks like Under Armour, but in tailoring. I don't know where he gets stuff that looks like this from. It looks so bad. I'm like, what is that? So, and because a lot of young men idolize him, I don't know why. Younger men need to find better role models than, people like Andrew Tate. But I think because the younger generation are looking at people like him, he has definitely brought back menswear tailoring many years. There's so many people that try to emulate him and have that same aesthetic, and it's horrible. Terrible, terrible tailoring.
I do think if you are well put together, you've got your own individual style. Maybe it's going to be vests. Maybe it's going to be you've got a particular type of shoe that you want to wear. Whatever works in your environment, find a way to be able to bring it in and to make that style yours. And don't be afraid to stand out from the crowd. Now, this one's a little bit more serious, but some guys just have a negative body image. Maybe they got the pear shape, they've got the bigger, wider hips, they don't have much muscle.
So I don't know what he's about to say, but I'm probably going to agree with him here, where good tailoring can change the way that you look, like visually. Like good tailoring can visually change your shape. So even if you have that kind of triangle body type, if you have a good tailor, they can actually make the jacket can make you look like you have a V-taper and improve how your shape looks visually, right? So if that's the point he's about to make, I definitely agree with him, but let's see what he says.
In the upper body, they're like, man, I just simply want to wear baggy clothing that hides everything. Well, here's the thing: is baggy clothing, it just makes you look like you're wearing baggy clothing. Instead, if you've got that type of build, wear clothing that actually is going to build up your shoulders, is going to maybe slim up the hips. There are particular cuts.
Okay, yeah. So this is the first thing that I definitely agree with him on. I definitely agree with him that most things is just about tailoring and shape. I still don't agree with him that, baggy clothes. It's all about tailoring and shape. You can wear baggy clothes that still look good if it's the right fit and the right shape. I think it's still, even within me agreeing with him, his understanding of like good clothing is still very limited and rigid. Going back to the Japan point, like there are Japanese men that wear high-waisted baggy trousers and it looks amazing. So this whole thing of, and if it's too baggy, it just all looks bad. I don't agree with that. But good tailoring can definitely change the way that your body looks. So I think it's more to do with the shape of clothes. And if anything, I think a better point he could have made is that people should be more intentional with the silhouette of the clothing that they wear, because it can change how your body visually looks.
There are certain styles of clothing. Again, that's why I like classic clothing. Most jackets, whether it be a casual jacket, whether it be a sports jacket or a blazer jacket, this is going to build up the shoulders. It's going to make the hands look larger. Depending on, the cut of the back of the jacket, you can actually get something with no vent, which is going to slim up the hips, or, around the hips a bit. My point being is no matter what your body build is, you can find clothing that better suits and makes you look your best for the body you have right now. Whether you are tall and skinny, you're short and stout, if you don't want to look big and sloppy, you want to look large and in charge. That's what we're shooting for here. Like the Kingpin, right? Seriously, when it comes to ethics, he's got something to improve on, but Fisk, when it comes to style, the man has it. Next up, we've got judgment and reaction. So many guys don't want to dress differently, don't want to dress up because they don't want other people to judge them. I like Nudie Cohen's point. He was this amazing, the rhinestone cowboy.
I'm not sure if I agree with this, only because I feel like the way he dresses is probably the way that least people will judge you, in the sense that if you wear really avant-garde stuff, people look at you weirdly. If you dress in that way, I feel like most people will be like, you're well dressed. Even people that I think of in my family who are well dressed, they wear polo shirts and trousers and loafers and stuff like that, but it's the fit that makes them look so good. So that's what makes them look amazing, and that's why everyone that sees them is like, oh my god, you're so well dressed. I actually think his way of dressing has the least judgment, if anything.
Look, he actually built out in Vegas, amazing Ukrainian immigrant. He would always say, it's better to be looked over than overlooked. And when you embrace that people are going to judge you, well, you might as well be judged as looking good. So at the party the other day, yes, I probably was one of the, best dressed guys there. I wasn't afraid to look great with my wife.
He's talking about best dress. Look at what he's wearing. I don't even want to be too critical, because I'm more making a wider point that we need to broaden our horizons on these conversations that we have around menswear, which is why I want to talk about menswear more, because I think that a lot of people's understanding of what menswear is rigid. But just being objective, the way he's talking, you would have thought that he wore the best outfit in human history.
I knew we were going to take some pictures. We were going to be spending some time together with others. And I had a number of men and a number of women compliment me. Wow, you look great. And it feels good. And you just simply learn to be able to say thank you, say I appreciate it. I do, people know what industry I'm in and what I do for a living. So it's like, hey, I got to live up to the brand. The point being is just learn to be able to accept a compliment and know that if people are going to judge you, they're at least going to judge you as someone that cares, someone that puts in the effort, maybe in their mind a little bit too much, but that's more on them than you. So what about time constraints? What about convenience? Is it harder to dress well? I don't think so, especially if you lay out your clothing, if you design a wardrobe, if you build things out so that you can just simply walk in. I always talk about the interchangeable wardrobe, but But one of the things I talk about with that is also being able to color block. As you guys probably have seen, most of my jackets, I've got reds right here, I've got browns. But whenever it comes to my trousers, they're usually going to be in grays. My shoes are going to be dark browns, but I keep this pretty consistent. Yes, I've got some blue jackets as well. My shirts are mostly going to be whites, they're going to be blues. These colors are, some people may find boring. I find it's just easy to be able to go in there and mix and match and to be able to build pieces out. Again, with an interchangeable wardrobe, you can own less, you can get more. It's going to be 3 pairs of shoes, 3 trousers, 3 shirts, and 3 jackets. Now, the goal here is for you to have 3 solid outfits with all 12 of those items. See how it goes right across 3, 3, 3, and 3? Instead of 3 outfits here, we actually have 81 outfits because everything is 100% mixable, meaning that every pair of trousers works with every pair of shoes, works with every shirt, works with every jacket. And let's talk about the excuse, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to dress better. Guys, come on. I give you so many tools here free on this channel, but if you actually want a guide, down in the description of today's video, I'm gonna link over to my style system. We've got a special going on. If you want a step-by-step on how to improve your style, get access to me and my team to be able to give you feedback on your outfits, to be able to just help you and motivate you and hold you accountable to taking action to become the man you know yourself to be when it comes to image and style, guys. I'm going to link to it down in the description. Guys, I give you so many free tools here at Real Men, Real Style. So continue your viewing experience. I got you covered. If you want more information on how to dress like your best self, guys, boom, check out this video. I got you covered.
And by the way, guys, if you guys want to know, I'm just joking. I mean, I sell things too. I sell an ebook. The only thing is I don't sell people promises, right? My ebook is just ways to learn about fashion more effectively. It's not like you're gonna read this and be better at style, buy my course. And I always find it interesting when like a video seamlessly transitions into like an advert. It's really interesting. I just wanted to make a point by looking at Japanese street style, because this understanding that if you don't dress, these like alpha male guys, if you don't dress in this very specific sartorial lens, then you don't look like you dress well. Like, I'm looking at the screen now. This person clearly looks like, first of all, looks very stylish, looks like they take time into their appearance. And I think a lot of people that see this person on the street will be like, oh, that's a stylish person. I don't think someone looking at this person would think that, this person doesn't know how to dress. Like, same here. Let's just go through a few like Japanese like street style. Obviously, there are more creative outfits here, but you'll see that a lot of outfits fall into the realm of like, they're playing with tailoring and they're playing around with things, and it's still cool, and people look at them and still think it's really stylish. Like, there's so many different communities and pockets of industries and cultures and subcultures that being well dressed is not so rigid. Like, people need to stop thinking of menswear as being so rigid. Like, geez. Like, we really need to advance past this like alpha male understanding of how clothing has to look. Harajuku would make this guy instantly explode. Reggie is telling me to check graph paper, so let me check graph paper. It's by Reggie, by popular demand from Reggie. But for example, stuff like this, like denim like this, I love stuff that fits like this. I feel like this is the kind of silhouette that Lemaire uses with their wider fit, but it's kind of sculptural and it looks really nice when they sculpt wider fit pants like that. I really like the shape of garments like that. Like, if I see someone that wears garments that look like this, I'm going to think, oh my God, they are really well dressed. Like, the shape of their clothing looks really nice. So this whole understanding where it's like, people just wear jeans and a baseball cap. It's like, I've seen people wear jeans and a baseball cap and it looks like some of the most stylish stuff I've ever seen because the shape of the clothing is so good. It's so, yeah, we need to broaden our horizons, guys. We really need to broaden our horizons. Dressing well to him is purely a social tool through a thin lens. It's also interesting because a lot of people that make kind of those like alpha male sort of real men dress like this sort of content, it's very interesting because they sometimes touch on dressing for yourself and personal style, but I don't think they realize that their content actually goes against personal style quite strongly. If anything, their content does not open the realm of men having any level of personal style. If they realize that or not, I have no clue. But yeah, I don't think they noticed that. Else as his audience is not us. Oh yeah, of course. Well, we can always touch in these different realms. Their range can go from coffee with milk all the way to deserts. Oh my gosh. But yeah, the Andrew Tate tailoring, guys, it's an eyesore. Wait, let me once again, trigger warning. Trigger warning, guys. Let's go. Andrew Tate outfits. Every time I see it, I'm just like, oh my God, not the skin tight blazers, like not the skin tight tailoring. Even his brother dresses like that too, but I think his brother dresses slightly better. But Andrew Tate, oh my God, like what even is the fit of that shirt? That shirt looks like he would struggle to button it up. What even is that? Where do you find hoodies that are like skin tight like that? Do you know who we need right now? We need dye workwear to be in the stream. We really need dye workwear to be in. Dye workwear would be cooking right now. The only thing worse are the creators who all their advice around seducing and courting women. Oh yeah, they are terrible. They are the absolute worst. Oh my God, they are so bad. Like the whole how to attract women, not realizing. And that's what I mean by a lot of these people are so rigid, right? Because they give the worst advice I've ever seen online. Because if you have like any social awareness, you would know that there are so many different kinds of women, so many different kinds of men, so many different kinds of people in the world that actually, if you are just yourself, you will find someone who is attracted to how you are by yourself. So if you're more of an artsy person, there will be, let's say you're a guy and you're attracted to women, there will be women that, you know, are interested in guys that are artsy. There will be women that, if you're a gamer guy, like a gamer nerd, there are women that like nerds. So this whole, you have to change your whole being and, you know, not be yourself and become this weird alpha male to attract people. It's so like, it's such bad advice. I feel so sorry for young men and young women that subscribing to these kind of people that give this advice is so toxic. So yeah, I know exactly what, you know, Balenci Baddie was alluding to, saying that the only thing worse are the creators who focus all their advice around seducing and courting women. It's so bad. So bad. Be yourself. The problem is that most of them are terrible people. They don't get that. Yeah. It's just crazy. Every time I see content like that, I'm like, and then it'll be like 1 million views and I'm like, oh no. People are actually taking in this toxic information. That's quite sad. And I feel like a big reason for a lot of these kind of things is Andrew Tate. So yeah, let me remove him from the screen. So, because it's a bit of a trigger. It's very much a bit of a trigger, guys. I hope those 100 steps to become an alpha male and attract female content creators. I hate those 100 steps to become an alpha male and attract female. It's so, and it's weird because a lot of that content actually has a cult following. Like there's people that live and die by that kind of reasoning of things, right? It's so strange. It's so strange. It's so weird. Don't worry, a rollie and a suit will cover up your bad personality traits. Oh my God, you guys in the chat are actually hilarious. You guys are funny. Like, I might be a terrible person, but at least I have a Rolex and a Rolls Royce. And my suit it costs 10K. Reggie says, showing these images, man, reminds me why I stay in Japan. I love living here. I mean, Japanese street style is elite. Like, the way people dress day to day in Japan is so elite. Like, I don't even want to be one of those, like, weebs. Like, oh my God, like Japan. But it is kind of true, though. It's just true. Facts are the facts. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.